My parents canceled my 18th birthday because my sister was too upset. That night, my grandpa cut them off and took me away. My parents ended up canceling my 18th birthday party just because my sister was throwing a fit. That same night, my grandpa finally had enough, cut them off, and told me to come with him. I had just turned 18 a couple days back, and my parents had promised to throw me a big party. But at the very last minute, they called the whole thing off because my spoiled older sister demanded it. Truth is, she wasn't even supposed to be around for my birthday. I was actually excited she'd be gone. But just my luck, on the day she was supposed to fly out, bad storms in the Midwest grounded every flight. She and her friends had planned to head to New York City 3 days before my birthday, but that trip got pushed back. Ever since then, she's been sulking nonstop, and my parents have been tiptoeing around her like she's made of glass. They're terrified of making her upset, and honestly, they never would dare. She's always been the golden child in our family. It got so bad that, on the morning of my birthday, she flat out demanded my party be canceled. Her logic was simple. If she couldn't enjoy herself, then neither could I. And my parents? They didn't even blink before sending out cancellations to every single guest. I didn't find out until later that evening. I was sitting there, all dressed up, waiting for folks to show up, but no one ever came. By 7 o'clock, I finally asked my parents what was going on, and that's when they told me the truth. They'd pulled the plug on my party without even asking me, just because my sister was pouting over her canceled trip. That's when I lost it. I completely blew up, screaming at them because it was so damn unfair. My whole life they've bent over backwards for my sister, while I've always been the one expected to compromise, to adjust, to take a back seat. I usually swallowed it, but this was a line they had no right to cross. The worst part? They were the ones who'd offered to throw me a big 18th birthday bash in the first place, inviting all my friends and relatives. Then, when they canceled, they didn't even tell me the truth. They made up some lie, telling everyone I'd suddenly gotten sick with a migraine, and even asked guests not to text me about it until the next day, so I wouldn't strain myself. So while I sat there in silence, no one called or messaged me. I didn't know a thing until I finally confronted my parents. Once I realized what they'd done, I couldn't hold back. I started shouting, furious beyond belief, because honestly, who wouldn't be in my position? And even then, all my parents cared about was keeping quiet so my sister wouldn't wake up from her nap. Can you imagine? I kept yelling anyway, until she finally stomped downstairs to defend them. She had the nerve to tell me our parents hadn't done anything wrong, that she was the one who said no one should be partying while she was this upset. According to her, it would have been heartless. Then she turned it around and called me spoiled, saying if I couldn't see that, I was the entitled one. That was the last straw. I snapped and started cussing her out. I even grabbed her hair and shook her before things turned into a full-on fight. My parents had to rip us apart, and in all the chaos, none of us noticed the doorbell ringing. When the shouting finally died down, my parents answered the door. To their shock, it was my grandpa standing there. Now, my dad's father is a tough man. He's respected and feared in our family, even by my parents. So him showing up right then was the last thing they wanted. The moment he stepped inside, he demanded to know why there was so much yelling. His eyes landed on me first, probably because I'd been the loudest. Normally, I keep quiet about how my parents treat me because it feels petty, but not this time. I laid it all out. The favoritism, the canceled party, everything. I was too angry to stay silent anymore, and honestly, hiding it would have just let them keep walking all over me. So I told him the truth, even mentioning how this wasn't just some one-time thing. This was 18 years of me being second best while my sister got treated like royalty. When I finished, the look on my grandpa's face said it all. He was shocked and furious. Within seconds, he lit into my dad, scolding him hard. That's when I learned something I'd never known before. For the past couple of years, my grandpa had been sending money every month just to keep my parents afloat. He'd been covering our family's expenses and even paid for the party my parents were about to take credit for. Grandpa told them they'd embarrassed him, that the way they treated me had clearly left me scarred, and he wasn't going to stand for it anymore. My parents just sat there in silence, taking the scolding. But my sister, being the idiot she is, tried to argue with him. She whined about how the only reason she wanted the party canceled was because she was heartbroken over her New York trip being called off, and that it would have been cruel to celebrate while she was so devastated. My grandpa didn't waste a single second entertaining my sister or the nonsense coming out of her mouth. He told her flat out that demanding I cancel my 18th birthday over her canceled trip was the very definition of entitlement. He said the world doesn't revolve around her, and honestly, I think that might have been the first time she'd ever heard those words. Her trying to argue with him only made things worse. The more she talked back, the angrier he got, until finally, He turned to my parents and told them he was cutting them off financially. From that moment on, they were on their own. Then he looked at me and said, "Pack your bags. You're coming with me if you want out. Your folks clearly only care about your sister." And even then, my parents weren't upset about losing me. They were furious about losing his money. They hardly even reacted to the idea that I might move out with him. That alone proved everything he said was true. So I didn't hesitate. While they were busy pleading with my grandpa not to withdraw his support, I went upstairs, grabbed my stuff, and packed as fast as I could. Then I walked right back down, followed my grandpa out the door, and left without him so much as glancing back at his own son. On the drive to his place, he actually apologized to me. He told me he was sorry I'd had to go through all this and admitted he should have stepped in a long time ago. I don't know what exactly he meant by that, but I was just glad to be leaving with him. The only people miserable about this new setup are my parents. They've been blowing up my phone nonstop, calls, texts, voicemails, you name it. I haven't blocked them, but I haven't answered either. I just read their messages without replying. Most of what they send is them apologizing, saying they never meant to neglect me, that they only treated my sister differently because she was more delicate and fragile. They claim they thought I was tougher, stronger, able to handle more on my own. But come on, my sister is 5 years older than me. She should have been the one strong enough to deal with sharing our parents, not the other way around. So I didn't believe a single word. I knew damn well they were only saying all that to get me back home so Grandpa would keep helping them financially. If they were truly sorry, they'd give me one real, honest apology. But that never came. And the longer it went on, the angrier it made me. This morning, I finally snapped. I texted my dad back and told him to quit messaging me. I said I knew their apologies were fake, just a ploy to keep Grandpa's money flowing, and I wasn't falling for it. I told him I was done. Instead of owning up to it, he texted back saying he and Mom both admitted they'd treated me unfairly, but they were ready to apologize and do whatever it took to make things right. That was their mistake, saying they'd do anything. I used that opening to lay out my one condition. The only way I'd consider moving back home, or even talking to Grandpa about supporting them again, would be if my sister moved out. She's 23, has been working for 2 years. She should have saved enough to get her own place by now. I didn't think I was asking too much. But of course, my parents called me ridiculous and heartless. So now, I guess I'm the bad guy for saying I won't live under the same roof as her anymore. The thing is, this isn't just about the birthday party. That was the breaking point, but it's been building for years. I grew up being told to always give up the last slice of pizza if she wanted it. If she didn't want it, then I was allowed to eat it. Same went for clothes. I wasn't allowed to wear anything she liked, because my parents said she had her own style. Basically, if something was trendy and she claimed it, it was off limits for me. Most of the time, I was stuck wearing her hand-me-downs anyway, since we're about the same size. Buying me new clothes was considered a waste, so I rarely got anything fresh of my own. Little stuff like that piled up over the years. Petty, maybe, but it added up, and it was always a reminder that she came first. I never told relatives about those things, because they seemed too small to complain about, and I doubted anyone would think it was enough reason to move me out of my own house. Plus, I knew if I said something, my parents would just get angrier with me. As for my grandpa, he really is a force in our family. People admire and respect him for good reason. Back in his prime, he was one of the sharpest lawyers around and won plenty of tough cases. He's known for being disciplined, morally upright, and, on top of all that, very wealthy. Naturally, everyone in the family looks up to him. I could have spoken up to him about how things were at home, but until last year, he was completely tied up caring for my grandma. She was in her final stages of life, and I didn't want to burden him with my issues while he was dealing with all of that. After she passed, he was grieving, and again, I didn't think my petty complaints were worth dumping on him. At the time, I never thought it was worth bringing up to my grandpa, but now that he stepped in and offered to help me, I couldn't be more grateful. He and I have always had a solid relationship, so it didn't surprise me when he told me I could stay with him until it was time to head off to college. He even went a step further, saying he'd cover all my expenses until I was working on my own. For now, I'm sticking to the condition I laid out for my parents. Truth is, I don't plan on ever moving back in with them, even if they did kick my sister out. I just want to see if they'd actually go through with it. That'll show me whether they're serious about wanting me back, or if they'd rather cling to my sister and lose Grandpa's support. I haven't told him about that deal, though. Honestly, it feels fair enough. After all, a lot of things were kept from me too. Things I only found out about recently. What I mean is, my grandpa explained that my parents never really wanted me in the first place. That hit me like a truck. He told me straight up that they had only ever planned on having one child. Then, 5 years after my sister was born, my mom got pregnant with me. At first, they intended to end the pregnancy. But my dad made the mistake of telling my mom's parents, and they were adamant that if God had given them another child, it would be wrong to throw that gift away. They managed to talk my parents into keeping me, but fate wasn't kind. When Mom was 8 months pregnant with me, her parents got into a terrible car accident. They hung on for a couple of weeks, but eventually both of them passed away. My mom was devastated. She had what Grandpa called a psychotic break. She started saying I was the reason for all the bad luck in her life. They even had to put her in a hospital for a couple weeks. When she came home, she was more stable, but things had changed. From then on, my parents carried around regret about letting the pregnancy continue. Grandpa told me they even planned to give me up for adoption once I was born. But that's when my dad's parents stepped in and refused to let it happen. They told my folks they were being ridiculous and wouldn't allow it. So, even though my parents never really wanted me, they raised me anyway. Grandpa only revealed all this when I asked him about the comment he'd made in the car, that he should have stepped in years ago. Now I understood what he meant. And honestly, he was right. He should have. Knowing the truth now explains everything. The favoritism, the constant neglect, the way I've always felt like an outsider. It wasn't about me not being good enough. It was about them never wanting me in the first place. That's why I know I'll never go back to them, and why I don't feel guilty about the way I'm treating them. They punished me my whole life for something I had no control over. The least I can do now is hold them accountable for things that are actually their fault. I'll admit, part of me is still upset that Grandpa didn't tell me sooner. But I also get it. It's not an easy thing to tell a kid. And right now, he's the only person I can truly lean on, so I'm trying not to stay too mad about it. It's been about a week and 4 days since I left my parents' house. They've kept texting, pushing me to back down on my condition, but I haven't answered a single one. I figured there was no point until they made a real decision. For the last 3 days, I didn't hear a word from them, and I started to think maybe they'd finally given up. But today, walking out of school, I saw my sister waiting outside. And immediately, I got a bad feeling. I wasn't taking any chances, so I asked one of my buddies to walk me home. He's a football player, big guy, not someone my sister would want to mess with. Him and I have been friends for years, and he knows everything about my family. I trust him completely. He agreed, and as we headed back, my sister started following us without saying a word. The whole thing gave me chills. Halfway home, I spun around and asked her what the hell she thought she was doing. She snapped that she wasn't going to discuss family business in front of a stranger. I told her I didn't want to talk to her at all. That's when she started in, saying our parents were stressed out and miserable, and it was all my fault because of how I'd been acting. Then she dropped the real reason she was there. She said Mom and Dad told her yesterday that I wouldn't come back, or even ask Grandpa to support them again, unless she moved out. And she thought that was unbelievably unfair. I just laughed. To me, it was ridiculous that she thought she deserved a debate. I told her if I couldn't be happy, then neither could she. That's the exact logic she used to ruin my birthday party, so I figured it was only fair it applied to her too. After that, I turned my back and started walking again. She exploded, screaming that I was a horrible human being. I didn't even slow down. I just flipped her off over my shoulder and kept moving. Apparently, that middle finger was what pushed her over the edge, because the next thing I knew, she came at me from behind. She knocked me to the ground, my backpack slamming into my back along with her weight. Thankfully, my friend reacted fast. Within seconds, I felt her being yanked off me. By the time I scrambled back up and brushed myself off, I looked over and saw that my friend was holding her one arm away, and he had barely even broken a sweat. So I guess I was right to have him walk me back home, since my sister always had a violent streak, and I knew about it. I was extremely annoyed that she had even thought that she could attack me and get away with it. So I walked up to her, slapped her really hard, and told her that if she tried to do anything funny again, I would report her to the cops, and with all the trouble that she had already caused for her dear parents, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't appreciate it more. She still had the audacity to try and continue arguing with me, but after that, my friend and I continued to walk away, and after that slap, she did not pursue me further. When I got back home, I told my grandpa all about it, and he was about to call the cops, but I told him that it was not even worth it. She was just a loser, and I'm pretty sure that she had learned her lesson. Besides, I'm sure that she was already in a risky position with regards to our parents. I finally told my grandpa about what I had said to my parents, the condition that I had set for them. I thought my grandpa would be upset, but he literally laughed along with me because he thought it was really clever, and he agreed that my parents definitely deserved to get messed around with. So that was that. And even though I'm feeling a bit sore from being pushed to the ground, I felt good that I could finally slap the daylights out of my sister because she totally deserved that, and it had been a long time coming. Now, I'm just hoping that my parents and my sister take this as a lesson and leave me alone. In September, I'm supposed to start college, so I'm only going to be living with my grandpa for the next couple of months, since school is officially over now. I had my high school graduation a couple of days ago, and my date to the prom was my boyfriend, the football player friend that I've been talking about in my last update. Yep, some of you guys called it. And I just wanted to get this happy little tidbit out of the way before I get into what happened with my parents and my sister. So, after my altercation with my sister, I received a message from my parents 2 days later, saying that they had come to a conclusion about what they wanted to do, and they were going to let my sister continue living with them, because I was clearly not the kind of person they wanted around her, since I had always been jealous and petty. They told me that the only reason they had wanted me to come back was because they needed the financial support from my grandpa. But my mother's older brother had decided to step in as a partner and an investor in the business, so they did not require that any longer, and neither did they want me around anymore. I'm pretty sure that they thought this was going to hurt my feelings, but I had already known about their true intentions from the beginning. So, this revelation made absolutely no difference to me, and I didn't even reply to that message. I guess the fact that I did not reply got under their skin, because they sent me another message a couple of hours later, saying that they were going to block me now because I was a horrible human being, just like my sister had said. Not only was I horrible and heartless, but I was also violent and ungrateful. Violent because obviously, I had slapped my sister the other day, and it was no big surprise that they had chosen to ignore the fact that my sister was the one who had provoked me and attacked me by pushing me to the ground. Or better yet, I don't even think they knew about it, because my sister must have not told them. And ungrateful because, after everything that my parents had done for me, I still had the audacity to act like they were bad parents. They brought up how they had raised me and spent so much money on feeding me, sending me to school, and clothing me. I really don't understand why parents bring up stuff like that when they are in a tough spot, because I think it's pretty much the bare minimum that they can do for their kids. It doesn't make them special, but I guess, in my parents' opinions, they think that the bare minimum is more than enough, and I should treat them like my saviors for all of that. Anyway, I really wanted to respond to that, but I decided against it because it would just be a waste of my time. So, before they could block me, I blocked them first, and now I'm done. My grandpa and I are living quite happily, and so far, I have been accepted into a lot of colleges of my choice. I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the better ones though, and then my grandpa will cover all the expenses like he had promised me earlier. We are still trying to get into the groove of living together, because I still do find myself getting mad at him occasionally for not taking me away from my parents earlier. But, at least he's trying to fix that later on in life. He must have had his constraints as well, and I know that he really regrets not being able to help me out when I really needed it. But now, we are working on it together, so I don't ever have to deal with my parents on my own again. Hopefully, they won't reach out to me ever again either. I'm doing great right now, and from what I know, my entire family has cut off my parents and my sister. My mom's side of the family is still in touch with them. But, thanks to my grandpa, nobody from my dad's side speaks to them anymore. Most people were not aware of the way I was being treated because, well, I never spoke about it. But after my grandpa started telling people that he was not in touch with my parents anymore, they started finding out exactly why we had that fallout. And my parents ended up getting ostracized. I don't think they have anybody to blame for this situation apart from themselves. So, it's karma, I guess. I have absolutely no idea what my sister has been up to, but I heard from a couple of people that she finally moved out and is living independently as of last week. To be honest, that's the news that reminded me to update you guys here. My boyfriend and I are still going strong, and we meet each other on the weekend since I go back home every weekend, because my college is pretty close. I've made a lot of friends here, and I really feel like a brand new person, to be honest. My grandpa and I have also been able to work on our relationship, and are as close as ever now. He's my favorite person in the whole world, and I don't think anything can ever change that. He has made his mistakes in the past, but well, who hasn't? I have forgiven him, and we have moved on from everything. So yeah, I'm really happy now.